So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. You back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Wednesday, June 16th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Wednesday, June 16th here today, coming off of a huge night in sports. The Brooklyn Nets and Kevin Durant with a huge win last night as they take a 3-2 lead in the series. And I mean, Kevin Durant was just unbelievable last night. He was dominant. He was Kevin Durant last night. It was one of the best performances of his career and one of the best performances in playoff history, as he was dominant last night. Just was doing everything right, and just was so good. 48 minutes, played every single minute of last night's game. He was out there on the court every single minute. What he did last night was simply incredible. And it was a big win for the Nets. Yankees also got a win yesterday. We actually won a baseball game. It's crazy how nice it feels to win. I always say this as a sports fan. I hate losing more than I love to win. Because winning's nice, right? You're satisfied whether you like it. But losing, it will sit with you, right? I got to admit, as a Net fan, I've been waiting for this game. When we lost on that Thursday game, I've been waiting for that Sunday game to come around. Obviously, we ended up losing Sunday as well. And that made me wait for this last night's game, which is Tuesday game. When you lose, it sits with you, right? You kind of sit there and you just think about it. And that's the only thing you're thinking about. When you win, it's nice, but now you feel good. You're confident. You're like, oh, yeah, that's good. But when you lose, it sits with you. A lot of times people talk about, anger and stuff, right? When you're angry, sometimes it's not just easy just to stop being angry. But when you get a win, it's like nice, satisfying. All right, that's good. Now we got to move on to the next game. When you lose, it sits with you until that next game. So I hate losing as a sport fan more than I love to win, I would say, because losing sits with you. But winning's great. Winning's awesome. I love winning. And obviously, Nets got to win. Yankees got to win. Taijuan Walker has been dominant this year. Another big performance by him. 7 innings, 2-run ball, 12 strikeouts, 93-something pitches, I think. He was just dominant. He's unreal. He's the best. He's been one of the best pitchers out there, and he's been a very key factor for the New York Mets. So Yankees, Mets, Nets all got into the win column yesterday. The Islanders lost 4-2, so tough loss for them. I'm not crazy surprised, although I did give the Islanders the win yesterday, sitting around just kind of thinking about it. I kind of regret that decision. I should not have gave them the win. Not that I didn't believe in them, but the Lightning, we all expected them to come out. Obviously, there was that terrible call. There was, 6-7 guys on the ice. They scored a goal. It was a terrible call. Yet Varlamov got injured. So I would say last night was a very rough night for the Islanders. That's one of those games that you just want to remove. There's a couple bad calls. Your starting goaltender got injured on a collision. There was a couple scuffles here and there. You lost by 2. You allowed 4 goals. It just was one of those games where, it just was not a good game. The other team was playing better than you throughout the entire game. The Lightning last night were the better team. They were the more physical team. And I expected them to come out hard, fast, and be physical. Because to fall down 2-0, then have to head to Nassau Coliseum is not an easy thing to do. Getting a win in Nassau Coliseum is hard to begin with. Going there down 2-0 is even harder. Even 1-1, that's not a great situation. Islanders take 1 there, boom, all the momentum is back on their side. So, obviously, a big night last night for New York sports. You had Kevin Durant's historical performance, and I don't care if you say, the Nets and mean nothing to New York. I don't give a crap. Okay, I don't care. But what I will say is that throughout the NBA, that's a big story. So it's a big story in New York. So Kevin Durant, dominant. As you can see here, I got my Kevin Durant jersey. I don't know if you could tell, but that is Durant. Just very happy today as a Net fan. Going into yesterday, we were not very great. But obviously, going into yesterday was not great. And I got to admit, going at halftime, I did not have much hope. And I will admit, I'm going to sit here and admit, I did not have much hope. Did I lose hope? Not really. But I did not have much hope going into that second half. And then the Nets started to play better. They started to, look good. And I was like, all right. Even towards the end of the second half, they started to look good. But we were still down by, I think, like double digits. And I was like, okay, we're slowly, doing something. And I was like, all right, maybe we get on a little bit of a run. And then they just go on this major run, and they end up winning the game. So a big win for the Nets. I said yesterday, who wins yesterday's game, I think would win the series. So Nets right now are in the driver's seat. They just got to take one from Milwaukee tomorrow, and they're moving on. And this is a series where you're lucky you got out of it with all the injuries and all the issues with this team right now. You're lucky you got out of it, and now you can head on over to the Eastern Conference Finals. But you got to focus on tomorrow's game. This is a big game. You got to put this one in the rear view. It's great. You can enjoy this, but tomorrow, got to focus on tomorrow's game. All right, so let's get into the topics for today. Obviously, after a performance like that from Kevin Durant, you got to expect me to talk about it. So we'll get into the Kevin Durant's dominant performance. Obviously, he had a great game yesterday. It really is just one of those things where it just, it's speechless. It was really just speechless. And I'm not going to, and I might have a lot of, times throughout this podcast when talking about him where I'm just, kind of just like this, where I'm just talking about, how it was kind of just, he was just dominant. Like, there's no other way of saying it. I'm going to say that a lot because he was. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but he was dominant. There's no other way of saying it. That was why the Brooklyn Nets got Kevin Durant last night, was performances like that. And I think he even exceeded what the Nets expect. Right? We all expect him to go out there and have a good game. You got to expect that every night from KD. But what he did last night will go down in the history books. Not only net history, but NBA history. Especially playoff history. That was a dominant performance. So we'll get into his performance. Jack Eichel, we'll also get into him. He's another guy. It's like his name just keeps going and going and going and going. Well, today we got word that trade talks are heating up. Buffalo are getting more calls, and it looks like Buffalo has set the asking price. They want a first-round pick for Jack Eichel. That's the only thing we heard they want. I would assume they would want more than just a first-round pick. But they want at least one first-round pick for Jack Eichel. So we have heard the asking price. We've heard that teams are heating up. We heard that the Sabres seem like they are in full pursuit of getting rid of Eichel. And it seems like a deal could happen very soon here. And I think as a Ranger fan, I think there's a good shot he could come to the Rangers, especially with the new hire we made of Gerard Gallant. So I wanted to get into his rumors, talk about the Sabres, talk about hockey, because I love hockey so much. And we'll get into that. Obviously, Sabres are not a playoff team this season. But, we heard that Owen Power might go back to school. So that causes some questions there, too, with not the Devils, but with the Sabres in terms of, are they going to keep Eichel or not? It seems like they're in full pursuit of trading him. It seems like there's a lot of people out there, a lot of teams out there in full pursuit of trying to get him. Rumors are heating up. We've learned the asking price. We'll see if a deal gets made before the NHL draft, which starts July 23rd. So we'll get into that. Then we'll finish off the New York sports update. A little bit of a calmer day in New York sports. Last night was a huge night, right? Huge night last night. Today's kind of a quiet day, and then tomorrow starts back up again with the Islanders and the Nets and the Yankees and the Mets. But the Yankees obviously getting the win yesterday, 6-5. Chris Gaines hit his first home run. Today, Cole takes the mound, and it's going to be Cole, I believe, versus Stripling. So that should be good. And Yankees, Mets are on today. Nets, Islanders both have a day off. Islanders will head back home. Nets head to Milwaukee for Game 6 tomorrow night. So that's that. Mets are in the third game of a 4-game set against the Cubs, and the Yankees are in the second game of a 3-game set against the Blue Jays, and the Yankees could possibly take the series tonight, which I would love to see for a team that's terrible this season. You would love to see them actually win a series against a team that I think is a lot better than what their record shows. The Blue Jays have had a lot of injuries, they've got and right now they've got the best player right now, performance-wise, in baseball on their team, and that's Vlad Guerrero. Now, Mike Trout, I still believe is the best player in baseball in terms of numbers and stats. It's Vlad, and I believe that Vlad is the AL MVP right now in baseball. I do believe that. So we'll get into that. We'll cap off all the sports. Some big news in the NBA. 2 coaches fired. CP3 out indefinitely. Kawhi's got an ACL injury. The NBA just going crazy. So, anyway, with all that being said, this is the BSN Podcast, and let's get into it. So, Kevin Durant. So last night, right, and sometimes that's kind of what happens when you're just watching a game. Right, sometimes you're just sitting there and you're really loud and you're screaming and yelling, and I was like that last night. I was very loud. I was very, hyped. I was very excited about the way the Brooklyn Nets were playing. And I got to admit, there are times as a sport fan, as a fan of sports, especially when you witness something like we witnessed last night. I was like that when Corey Kluber threw his no-hitter. I was very happy, but you kind of just sit there in awe of what they just did because it really is something that you don't see very often. I know no-hitters, there were 6 thrown in the first month and a half of the season, but we haven't seen a no-hitter since. So, obviously no-hitters now have seemed to die down a little bit with the whole sticky situation and all that stuff. It seems to die down. That's besides the point. I don't want to go down that road again. That was on yesterday's podcast if you want to watch that. But in terms of Kevin Durant, like last night I was very excited and I was very happy about it. But I wanted to say this first. Like, there's times in sports where you just sit there and watch the game that's in front of you, and you especially if it's your favorite team. And last night I was sitting there watching that game, and I was very into it. I had so many emotions in that game. I had highs, I had lows, I had highs. It was a high, a low, a high, a low. I mean, the whole first half was pretty much a low, and the whole second half was a high. The amount of emotional plot twist that was taken in that game as a fan last night was unbelievable. You had a low in the first quarter, low in the second quarter, extremely low in the first quarter. Only scored, 15 points. Then you had a high in the third quarter and a really, hyped up high in the fourth quarter. But last night while watching Kevin Durant, I really you sat there and you were in awe of what he did. I mean, it really is just what he did last night was something we don't see very often in the regular season, and let alone we don't see very often in the postseason. And I should actually say especially in the postseason, because regular season, we see a lot of triple-doubles, we see a lot of, high-point games, not taking anything away from them, but playoffs in the playoff atmosphere, there's something different about playoff basketball, and there was something different about Kevin Durant last night. What he did last night had you sitting there watching the game, kind of just watching it speechless. That's how good he was last night. He was so good, you kind of were just sitting there wow, this guy is unbelievable. And today, the NBA world, including LeBron James and a lot of guys like that, Donovan Mitchell, I mean, they're all saying it. Kevin Durant is the best basketball player in the world. Now, I'm not going to put my take into that because that could open up a whole nother can of worms. That's a big debate around NBA. That's a big debate in any sport league. Who is the best, in the world in the sports? But Kevin Durant last night was unbelievable. And what he did last night with a shorthanded Nets team was remarkable. Because remember, people, the Nets go into Nets fans, right? I got up yesterday, right? And when we got up, us as Nets fans, when we got up, we were expected. We got up. It was game day. We expected that Kevin Durant was going to be the only one playing, right? Kevin Durant was going to be the only one playing. Kyrie, James Harden, both were out. Now, we did learn that Jeff Green would be back. That was great news. He was amazing, too. I'll get to him in a little bit. But you get into, you start to, yesterday, all of us Nets fans woke up assuming it was just going to be Kevin Durant. And then we hear that James Harden is going to play. And that gives me a lot of excitement. Not saying I thought James Harden was going to go out there and go off for 50 points. But I've said this, to put another body out there, to put another guy out there, take some of the attention off of Kevin Durant. But Kevin Durant did perfectly fine. He was dominant anyway. And I got to admit, Harden, I know he struggled. I understand that. But the fact that he was out there, I could guarantee he's not 100%. You could tell by how he was playing. The fact that he's out there, the fact that he's that devoted to this team, it makes you really happy as a Net fan. Because when we got Harden, he had a very bad rap of being a bad teammate and, always wanting to do things on his own and never working together. But now with the Brooklyn Nets, he really wants to win a championship. That's his whole goal. And last night showed that. Yes, he did not put up, no, he did not put up 50 points and 10 rebounds and 15 assists. No. Yes, he shot 1 for 9 or something like that. And yes, he had a couple bad misses from 3. I understand that. But the fact that he was out there, not 100%, he looked to me 60%, 70% healthy, not even. 70 might be a little bit of a push. He says he's healthy, but I would even say he was 60. That's from how he played. But I don't want to criticize him because, like I said, the fact that he went out there yesterday, he could have very well sat yesterday and been like, you know what, no, I'm going to sit, I want to rest a little bit more. No, he realized that yesterday was a must-win game, and he went out there, and no, he did not have a great game, but the fact that he was out there battling, trying his best, doing his very best, he did play make a little bit, he did get some nice plays, was just remarkable. And that is officially where I officially love this James Harden trade. I hated it at first because I thought we were going to get another guy that all he wants to do is shoot. He doesn't play defense. He doesn't care about how the team's doing. All he cares about is individual stuff. He has completely changed since he came to Brooklyn. He's all about the team. He assists. He's about his teammates. He's devoted to the team. Even if he's only 70%, he'll go out there and battle. And Kevin Durant, he recognized it too. He realized, hey, you know what? Last night, this could be it. If we lose tonight's game, we're down 3-2. We got to go to Milwaukee, which isn't going to be easy. This could be it. And KD realized too, hey, we got to go out there and we got to be dominant. And KD was simply dominant last night. No other way of saying it. He wasn't good. He wasn't solid. He was dominant last night. That's what he was. Last night, he was the best player on that floor by a mile. Giannis had a good game. Jeff Green had a good game. Middleton, Holiday, all those guys. They had a couple good games. But Kevin Durant was way above all them. History-making performance last night. I was looking at a stat earlier. It was something like the last player to record something amount of points, or I could get it up here. I actually want to check this. It was something here. I want to show you this crazy stat. So it was something like the last player to record an insane, really good game. It wasn't like it wasn't a really crazy stat. It was a very simple stat. Let me find it. It was something involving Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant. It was a stat there. Let's see here. CBS Sports. I can't find it exactly. But it was some stat, like, it was something crazy. It was something like the last player to record this triple-double or something like that was him and Kobe Bryant, and obviously Kobe, the great late Kobe, who was also a very dominant player. He had a big performance. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame. Obviously an all-time great player there. I would not consider him the best of all time, but he had an excellent career. Harden is in that company. So, but like I said, this is a team that last night was a must-win. And KD recognizing KD was good. And I want to say this too. To all the people out there who don't like Kevin Durant, who don't like the Nets, who want to see the Nets lose. I mean, you can admit, if you can admit if you don't like the Nets or not. I have no issue with it. I have people all the time, and I don't know many people that like the Nets. I personally don't. I know there's a lot of Net fans out there. I don't know those Nets. Like, I don't personally know those Net fans. Personally, I don't have many people that I know that are Net fans. There are a lot of Knicks fans. There are some fans that don't watch basketball, whatever the case may be. In terms of NBA fans, I know a whole lot of Knicks fans. I don't know many Net fans. So you can admit that you want to see the Nets lose. You don't have to try to say anything. You can admit it. You might like the Nets. I don't know. You might not care. You could care less if they win it or not. But last night was a pure example of why the Brooklyn Nets got Kevin Durant. They didn't get him just to be a great player. They didn't get him to be a guy, bring in, a big-name player to do that. They got him for moments like that last night. And he reminds me of the Garrett Cole signing on the Yankees. The Yankees got Garrett Cole to be a dominant pitcher, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs. And last night, that's why we got Kevin Durant, was for moments like last night. You're tied 2-2 in the series. There's a lot of injuries. Harden's not 100%. Although when the Nets signed when the Nets signed KD and Kyrie and them, Harden was not on the team. But that's besides the point. Harden was not 100%. If you lose yesterday's game, you're down 3-2. You head to Milwaukee down 3-2. That's not a very good situation. Blah, blah, blah. That last night was a must-win for Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets. And that's why the Nets got him. For moments like last night. He had a huge game. Right? 49 points. 10 assists. 17 rebounds. shot 69.6% from the floor, and he played 48 minutes. Not 40, not 45. This was not overtime. He played every single second of the game last night. And I know the 17 rebounds and the 10 assists and the 49 points are going to look all great. And I understand that. That's the first thing you see. But what really hits me is the fact that he played 48 minutes. The last player to do that was LeBron James when he was on the Cavs. He played the entire 48 minutes. It was back when he was on the Cavs, so a couple years back. Once again, in company with another legendary player. Last night, I think, sealed that Kevin Durant will go down as one of the better ones of all time. And I do think that he is arguably the best player in the league. When healthy and when out there, he is. And last night showed. That's why the Brooklyn Nets got Kevin Durant. Was because of moments like that. Your back's against the wall. Things are not going the way you want to go. You just lost 2 straight. Harden comes back, but he's only about 70-80%. He's not 100%. He's not playing his main game. He's not driving, whatever. Harden was out there. I really like that. He really wants to win. That's all I want. As a fan, I'm glad that Harden was out there. I know a lot of fans might disagree, but that's why the Brooklyn Nets got Kevin Durant. Was moments like that. 49 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists, 69.6% field goal percentage. And oh yeah, he played every single second of that game. There was not a moment where he was not on the floor. Just think about that for a second. He played every single second of that game. He was not on the bench at all. He played every single second. And to keep up that consistency, it didn't even seem like he was getting tired late in the game. If anything, he actually got better late in the game. And I went wild when he hit that 3. It was that one possession. It was like 2 seconds left on the shot clock. And Harden was in trouble. He was like getting double teamed. He was kind of getting trapped. And Harden just threw it to KD. KD came around a screen. It was a busted play. It was a bad possession by Brooklyn. It was a bad possession. We just made a good defensive stop at the other end. I think we were winning by like 1 or something. It was a big possession because if KD doesn't make that shot there's a chance Bucks get the rebound. Boom, they're at the other end. They could take the lead. I believe it was only like a 1-point game. When I explain here, you'll get it. It was like 2.1 seconds left on the shot clock when KD got the ball. He was by the logo. He chucked it up and he made it. I mean, that's when you know a player is having an historic night, when he just chucks up a 3 on a busted possession. That possession, right when we got past the half-court line, Harden started getting pressure. The screens weren't working. There was nothing smooth on that possession. And then Harden kind of passed out of it, gave it to Kevin Durant, and KD shot it, and he made it. That right there was the sealer and the final thing that I knew last night was a historic night for Kevin Durant when he makes a shot like that. That was a dominant shot. And oh yeah, he was dominant on defensive end too. 49 points, 17 rebounds, 20 assists. Or 10 assists rather. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. 20 assists, that's perfectly fine. But 49 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists. And I'm going to say it again. I'm going to sound like a broken record today. You're just going to have to deal with it. I'm having my moment here where this is just as a Net fan, for having all these years of having all these guys, Alan Crabb come in here, all these random guys, we had Jeremy Lin, all these guys come in here sign these 1-year deals. We finally have the guy, Kevin Durant. And oh yeah, he played every second of last night's game. That's another pure example of being a team player. He said he did not expect to play every second, but hey, they needed him to, and he did. And that's what I said. When this team was formed, everyone's like, oh, it's full of a bunch of guys that just care about themselves. But they've adapted, they've learned, and they want collectively to win a championship. So they will do anything to help out the team. Harden went out there. I could guarantee you his hamstring's not great. You saw the tape that it was on his hamstring. It was probably like that medical tape or whatever. It was some band or something. I don't know, but it's tape. You could see it. You guys see guys in the MLB wear it on their arms. You see it all over the place. You saw it on his leg last night, on his hamstring. You knew he wasn't 100%. He went out there because the team needed him. Kevin Durant, he didn't need to play 48 minutes. He could have said, hey, he could have sat. He could have sat for 5-6 minutes in that game. But no, they were in a close game. They needed to come back. He was dominant. He was hot. He was amazing. And he went out there and played every minute. And one thing that I like about KD, not one thing, I like a whole lot of things about him because that's how good he is. I like how he plays. I just like the fact that he's on the Brooklyn Nets. I would never have thought in a million years, a Net fan, that Kevin Durant would be on the team. But obviously, yeah. But in terms of, and obviously, yeah, Kevin Durant. And, that's one thing I really liked, was the whole 48 minutes. He played every second of that game. And another thing I like, which is what I was just about to say here before I kind of lost my train of thought. One more thing here, and then I'll really get into the team stats, was Kevin Durant last night, in terms of, just the way he played, right? What I like about his mentality was, he was happy. They got the win. He's not going to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, we got to win. Good for us. No, he was happy we got to win. I'm happy. He's happy. And Brett, believe me, right after this podcast, I'll enjoy this. But tomorrow, my mindset as a fan, I'm going to be set on tomorrow's game. I'm not going to be focused on this game anymore. But that's what I like about his mindset. He's not all like, oh, yeah, we're better, we're dominant, we don't, we tonight I showed everything. He said, hey, this is a good win, but we need one more. We need another win. That's where people, I think, are getting a little ahead of themselves. Like, yes, the Nets got the win, but now we got to go to Milwaukee and we got to finish business there. Because that's the last thing I want is a Game 7 back in Brooklyn. I shouldn't say that's the last thing I want because I guess a Game 7, Brooklyn, if you win, you're moving on. If you're not, you're done. I guess that could sound really good. But I just want the series to be done with. And then the 76ers-Hawks series isn't even done. That will be played tonight. I hope that series goes into 7 games. I would much rather the Hawks come out of there. And the reason I say that is because I think the Nets should have no issue with the Hawks. 76ers, if we're still banged up like this on the injury front, it could be tough. But the Hawks, I think, we'll be fine with. Like I said, I want to get ahead of myself. But if the Nets win tomorrow night, right, Game 6, if we win tomorrow night, you now head to the Eastern Conference Finals. That Hawks-Sixers series, you got to hope that goes to 7 games. You give Harden some extra rest. You give the team as well rest. I don't think Kyrie would probably be back in time for that series exactly. But you get some extra rest, and you start up that series. So winning Game 6 would be huge tomorrow night. And then you could wait and, rest. That's what this team needs, is a little bit of rest. Even if it's only 3 days of rest, 3-4 days of rest. That's exactly what we would need. 3-4 days of rest. Even if Harden's not 100%, just give him some rest. Just, the hamstring, right? Just give him some rest, recoup, find out if Kyrie's going to be ready or not, then focus. But tomorrow, we got a big game. We got to focus on that. This game is going to be talked about all today, and I'm sure all tomorrow leading up to tomorrow's game. But tomorrow, the mindset's got to be taking care of business in Milwaukee and then moving on. Then you can focus on the next round. So let's just get into some of the final stats by the Brooklyn Nets. Like I said, Jeff Green was just dominant. He stepped up in a big way. Obviously, last night, this was how it is. Kevin Durant played 48 minutes, went 16 of 23 from the field, 4 of 9 from three-point. He had 17 rebounds, 10 assists, and 49 points. It's as simple as that. Just dominant. Then Blake Griffin at 29 minutes. He went 7-11, 3 of 6 from three-point. 3 points, 3 rebounds. He did not have any assists, but he had 17 points. Joe Harris was terrible again. He's got to find his shooting, especially if we move on to the second round. He's got to find it. Especially if we go up against a team like the Hawks, where they're a very good shooting team. It could turn into a shootout. We need Harris to get going. Harris struggled. He played 37 minutes, 2 of 11 from the field, 1 of 7 from three-point range, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and only 5 points. He needs to get going. I don't know what went on with him. Bruce Brown, he played 13 minutes. He went 1 of 5, 0 for 1 from three-point range, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and he had 2 points. And James Harden played 46 minutes, 1 of 10 from the field goal range, 0 of 8 from three-point percentage, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, and 5 points. His stats were not very good, but he played 46 minutes. He was out there. He did it for the team. He did it because he wants to win, and that's all that matters in my opinion. And you look at the 4 players coming off the bench. Jeff Green had a big night. 35 minutes, 8 of 11 field goals, 7 of 8 from three-point range, 1 rebound, 3 assists, and he had 27 points, so he was second behind KD. Claxton played 2 minutes. Mike James played 3 minutes, went 0 for 1 from field goal, 0 for 1 3-point, 1 rebound, 1 assist. And Landry Salmon played 28 minutes, 3 of 5 from field goal, 1 of 3 3-point, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 9 points. As a team, the Brooklyn Nets shot yesterday 49.4% field goal percentage, and 3-point percentage was 37.2%. It was not our best game overall, but Kevin Durant led the way. Your top 3 leading scorers were Kevin Durant with 49, Green. I just said James Green. I looked at Harden. I was about to say James Harden, and I said James Green. Jeff Green, 27 points, and Blake Griffin had 17. Those were your 3 players that were in double figures yesterday. 49 points by Kevin Durant, 27 points by Jeff Green, and another added 17 points by Blake Griffin. Those were your top 3 leading scorers for the Brooklyn Nets. And like I said, as a team, we shot 49.4%, which isn't bad. 37.2% 3-point percentage is not great. Shooting into the 42 to 44 is eh. Anything above 45 is good. Anything above 50, you'll take that out in any game. But, you look at some of the percentages. Brown, Harden collectively went 0 for 9 from 3. Harris, Brown, and Harden last night collectively went 1 of 16. And you're talking about Harden, who's a very good 3-point shooter, and Harris, who's a very good 3-point shooter. Brown, not so much, but still, you're talking about 3 very key players to this roster. They went 1 of 16. As the starters, all in all, last night went 8 of 15, 22, 23, 25. So that's not terrible, I guess. Or 35, I don't know. Math, not going to do all the math in my head. But yeah, that was that. So, and obviously, Durant last night had a +6. Plus minus, Griffin at a -4, Harris +4, +3, Bruce Brown +1, and Harden +4. So if you go into the deeper stats, like you go into the assists, the rebounds, you go into the plus-minus, Harden did not. He had a good game for not being 100%. And like I said, I did not expect him to go out there and throw up 40. Put up 40 points. But the fact that he was out there battling for his teammates. When he came here, he said he's here to win a championship. He said he'll do anything he can to win a championship. And last night showed that. And Kevin Durant was simply dominant. An historic performance by Kevin Durant. And the Brooklyn Nets take a 3-2 series lead. And now they head today for a matchup tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN for Game 6. A possibility of a series-clinching game. All right, so that's what I got for the Brooklyn Nets and their dominant performance. It's just simple as that. And I couldn't be more excited. Yesterday I was pretty down. I did not feel down in terms of the Nets. I did not feel confident going into that game. I did not feel like we were going to win that game. I did predict this to win, but deep down inside, that news for Harden came out there in the podcast, and I was very excited when I heard that. And I gave the Nets the win, and I still did not feel 100% about the game. I actually still did not feel very confident. And then after the first half, I was like, oh, God. And I was kind of sitting there like, okay, we might go down we're going to go down 3-2 here. And then Kevin Durant, who had a good first half, comes out, and it's just like I'm just sitting there like, oh, wow. That's wow. Kevin Durant, just amazing. All right, so that's what I got for the Kevin Durant's dominance and the Brooklyn Nets last night. Like I mentioned, day off today, they will head to Milwaukee for Game 6 tomorrow. And, you got to hope that they wrap up the series tomorrow and move on. All right, so, so let's get into now the Jack Eichel rumor. So coming up next here, Jack Eichel trade talks are heating up. The trade talks, they say, are getting intense and serious around the Buffalo Sabres star center, Jack Eichel. I will tell you if I believe the Rangers are involved. I'll tell you the asking price. And I believe that this move is going to happen very soon. I do believe that Eichel is going to be playing for a different team next season. Which team? I'm not sure, but I do strongly believe he is now actually going to get traded. I think all the rumors are over. I think the Sabres and Jack Eichel, I think, have made some sort of an agreement. They're going to move on from him. I'll get into that coming up next. Alrighty, so Jack Eichel trade rumors, talks getting intense and serious around Sabres star. Now, intense and serious are very intense and serious words. I mean, they are. They're very, when you hear those words, you're going to definitely be thinking that, something's going down involving the Jack Eichel and Buffalo Sabres thing. And let me just say this first. I mean, this has been going on for such a long time now, and I actually do hope, as a person that has, as a fan like me, I do obviously the podcast and I talk about sports and stuff. I do hope that he gets traded, because all of this talk, it's not that I want to see the Sabres fail. It's nothing against the Sabres, but it's just because for someone like me who has talked about Eichel about 5-6 times in the past 2 months here about the rumors, I do want to finally see him get traded, because I don't want to just talk about rumors for this entire offseason, see him never get traded. And I also think it would create, whoever gets him, I think, got a whole lot better. And I know a lot of people want to talk about last year's stats with Jack Eichel. Okay, last year for the Buffalo Sabres was a terrible year. Okay, throughout the NHL, it was a weird year anyway. 56 games, Eichel got hurt, he didn't even play that much. When he was playing, he was not that good, but I think it was part of the reason him and Taylor Hall just didn't work well. The Sabres early in the season had that COVID issue, so they were done. They were shut down for about a week. And, the Sabres last season is just not a good year. So I know a lot of people might want to jump to the conclusion and say, oh, Eichel's not good anymore. He had a terrible year last year, but he was injured. Him and the Sabres, I feel like going into last year had some, issues, were not clicking. And then especially ending of last year, they were not clicking. And I think now they've completely are done with each other. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is almost like something with Julio Jones, where it isn't public, but I wouldn't be surprised if Julio Jones is almost like this situation. Jack Eichel is almost like the Julio Jones situation, where they've already agreed to mutually part ways, but it just hasn't become public yet. We heard about that Julio Jones. Supposedly 3 months ago, the Falcons and Julio Jones agreed to part ways, and the Falcons would accept his trade request and start to look for trades. We found that out a couple days before he got traded. So this is, I feel like, with Jack Eichel. I feel like very soon we're going to find out that it is true that the Sabres are going to move Eichel, and Eichel wants to move on, and the Sabres have accepted that request, and I think now that they are going to try to move on from him. Because especially when you see words like intense and serious and things are heating up, it means that teams around the league get this sense that Eichel's done, that the Sabres are done with Eichel, and Eichel's done with the Sabres. And it seems like they are getting the sense, or at least the Sabres might have said to some other teams, like, hey, he's available, here's the asking price, we'll see what's your best deal. And that's where I think a trade could happen anytime soon. And if they want draft picks, if they want a first-round pick, it's going to have to be done before July 23rd, or actually on the draft, which starts July 23rd. And we'll figure out what happens with Jack Eichel. Obviously, the first night of the NHL draft is July 23rd, and if you want a deal that's going to be involving this year's picks and maybe a deal that happens during the draft, that could happen on July 23rd. I don't really know if it's going to be like that. I could see this deal happening anytime soon, because it does seem like the Sabres actually want to move on from Eichel. If the Sabres were hesitant, we would not hear heating up, we would not hear intense and serious, we would not hear the possible asking price for it. I mean, I've got it right here. Sabres eyeing 2021 first-round pick for star center as talks have gotten more intense and serious, The Athletic reports, and that's a trustable source there. The Athletic, they've come out with a lot of rumors, and a lot of those have come true. So, a trustable source. You hear the asking price. It seems like now that the Sabres are fully committed to moving on from Jack Eichel. But it creates an interesting situation there in Buffalo, because first of all, we still don't know who the coach is. Second of all, Owen Power, who was the projected number one pick, I talked about him a couple days ago when they won the draft lottery, he says that he's going to probably return to school. So now, what are you going to do? Like now, you're still going to probably pick one number, you're still going to have to pick a guy number one, but do the Sabres now trade back? Do the Sabres have to wait to find their new cornerstone of their franchise? Right, if they draft Owen Power and you get rid of Eichel, boom, Owen Power is the new face of the franchise. He's the guy that you build around, and he's the guy that you want on your team for years and years and years to come. But now that Owen Power might go back to school, or not might, he says that's his main thing, which is very surprising to me. You very rarely see a top prospect decide to go back to school. We saw with Chris Olave this season, one of the better receivers in college football. He decided to go back to Ohio State. Now, was he a top prospect in the NFL draft? No, but he was definitely up there on the receiver boards. He decided to go back. That was surprising. Owen Power, also very surprising. 2 Big Ten athletes, hockey and football. So who knows if Owen Power is going to go back to school? It seems like he is. I mean, he sounded pretty convincing. I saw the interview. And he'll probably come back next season and then enter the draft. But now, do the Sabres, obviously the Sabres still feel that they want to move on from Eichel, which could almost mean that they are going to still draft number 1, or they might trade back. And maybe they trade back, and then they'll get even more picks, and that could be a deal involving Eichel or something like that. But all I know is this is a big, big development here. And I personally, if you're asking me, I think this could be one of these situations where they've already mutually agreed to part ways. I think Eichel has already went to the front office and has requested a trade, and I think the Sabres have accepted it. But I don't think it's become that public. But I do think the Sabres are starting to call. I don't even know if it's other teams calling the Sabres. I think it might be Sabres calling other teams. And other teams are starting to listen. Other teams are starting to hear that, hey, the Sabres are trying to get a deal done. Let's make things happen. And with the head coaching hire, I said this yesterday with Gerard Gallant. With the coaching hire of the Rangers, I think the Rangers are going to be very aggressive this offseason. And I do think they're going to make a very strong push for Eichel. I said that yesterday. If you don't believe me, go back and watch it. I literally said, Jack Eichel, I think the Rangers are going to make a very strong push for Eichel now. Because the Rangers, with their new coach hire in Gerard Gallant, is now in a very win-now type mode. And getting Eichel is going to be a win-now type move. It's going to be a move that's going to help you win this season and win in the future. And help this team develop. So, where is he going to go? That's the big question. I think the Rangers could be in on this. The Rangers were in on it last season, and I think they're in on it again. The one thing I don't want it to happen, I would love to get Eichel on the New York Rangers. I would love to. I still think he's a very good player. Last season, the offense wasn't good. Taylor Hall and him just didn't mix. He had a weird 56-game season. He got injured. It was just it was a recipe for disaster for a player to have success in a season. I still think he could be one of the better players in the league. I said better players, not best. I said, top 15, top 10 I think is a little maybe too much, but he's definitely up there. In terms of young players, young rising players, he's way up there. But I just don't want the Rangers, if they do go after him, to overpay. Give up 2 future stars and 2 first-round picks. That might be a little too much. Give up a pick and another player, and boom, then you might have a deal. And I would like that. It might be like a Harden trade. We give up a whole lot. I don't like the move at first, and then all of a sudden he turns into this stud, and all of us Rangers fans love him. But just imagine Jack Eichel, Artemi Panarin, and Mika Zibanejad all together. I don't know. I don't know. I think it would just be so good. Like I said, I think this move, I really do. If you want to ask me, you can ask me. If you were to ask me, when do I think this move's going to get done? I think this is going to be a move that's going to get done very soon. I really do. I think this move's going to get done soon. I think the Sabres are going to trade Eichel very soon. I don't even think they're going to wait for the draft. Talks are heating up. Talks are getting serious. And I think the Buffalo Sabres are very close to trading Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel trade rumors, talks getting intense and serious. All right, serious around Sabres star. Trade talks surrounding Buffalo Sabres superstar center Jack Eichel is reportedly starting to heat up. According to Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic, negotiations between the Sabres and teams interested in acquiring Eichel are getting more intense and serious. LeBrun theorized that if the Sabres are going to move Eichel this offseason, general manager Kevin Adams would like to get a first-round pick in the 2021 NHL Draft as a part of the package, meaning a deal would have to be struck by July 23rd, the first night of the draft. After putting up the best numbers of his career in the 2018 and 2019 and 2020 season, hopes were high for Eichel entering the 2020-2021 campaign, especially after Buffalo signed winger Taylor Hall in free agency. The signing didn't work out as Hall, 19 points in 37 games, was traded to the Boston Bruins before the deadline, and Eichel was limited to only 21 games because of injuries. The 24-year-old didn't look like himself even when he did play, though finishing with only 2 goals and 16 assists for 18 points while posting a disappointing -9 rating after being a +5 the previous year. The team captain was on that shelf with a herniated disc in his neck, and he recently admitted to the media that he wasn't a fan of the way the Sabres handled his treatment. Last month, Eichel told reporters the following regarding his injury status, and he seemed to suggest he was open to a trade as well. There's been a bit of a disconnect from the organization, a bit in myself. It's been a tough time, right? It's been tough at times. Right now, I think for me, the most important thing is just trying to get healthy and figure out a way to be available to play hockey next year, wherever that might be. That line makes a lot of sense, wherever that might be. That doesn't mean that he's, as a player, is completely sold, and maybe that means that he doesn't completely trust that the organization, that maybe he does believe that they are going to trade him. Frustration has seemingly been mounting even before the injury situation, as the Sabres have not reached the playoffs during Eichel's 6-year NHL career. Their last postseason berth was in 2011. The Sabres finished with the worst record in the NHL this season, which helped them land the number 1 overall pick in the 2021 NHL Draft. They also fired head coach Ralph Kruger during the season. Those factors give the Sabres a chance to have a fresh start, and trading Eichel could contribute to it, even though it would mean Buffalo losing its best player. Eichel, who signed an 8-year $80 million contract extension prior to the 2018-2019 season, should be highly desirable on the trade market since he is a young, productive player under contract for 5 more seasons. Taking the injury-riddled 2020-2021 season out of the equation, Eichel was a player on the rise with 28 goals and 54 assists for a career-high 82 points over 77 games in 2018-2019. He followed up with a career-high 36 goals to go along with 42 assists in 78 games, points in 68 games the next season. Eichel, who was the number 2 overall pick in the 2015 draft after the Edmonton Oilers took Connor McDavid first overall. He has all the tools needed to be one of the top players in the NHL and a perennial Hart Trophy candidate. Because of that, the Sabres should be able to secure a massive package of picks, prospects, and players should they make the difficult decision to part with him. LeBrun reported that the Los Angeles Kings, Minnesota Wild, Anaheim Ducks, Columbus Blue Jackets, Philadelphia Flyers, and New York Rangers are perhaps the best fits for Eichel. Now, I have heard recently, there was a report that came out a couple days ago, that the Kings are looking to make big moves this offseason, but I did hear that they're not showing much interest in Eichel anymore. So if that's true, then it'd be the Wild, Ducks, Blue Jackets, Flyers, and Rangers. And maybe still the Kings, but I don't know about that. The Ducks' 3rd overall pick, Blue Jackets' 5th, and the Kings' 8th are picking high in the draft, which could make them the most desirable trade partners for the Sabres. Should Buffalo take defenseman own power with the number 1 overall pick and then use one of the aforementioned picks from an Eichel trade on one of the top forwards in the draft, the Sabres will have a lot of talented pieces in place for a proper rebuild, which may be the only way to get the floundering franchise back on track. Now, Owen Power has not officially said he's going back made the decision to go back to school, but he said that's what he thinks he will probably do. But right now, he is still technically considered in the NHL draft, and people still technically consider him obviously switched. He has not officially. He said that he's planning on moving back to college and going back to there, but I don't know if he will do that, but that definitely seems like a real possibility for Jack Eichel. So we'll see how it goes. You're just looking now. Like I said, I would not be surprised to see him get traded very soon. I really wouldn't. You're even talking today. Today might be a little bit of a stretch, but within the next week, I could very well see Jack Eichel getting traded. And to be honest, I think I would like that. Even if it's not to the Rangers, I would like to see him, get trading. Something like that. Something like that, like within the next week or 2 weeks, or I don't think it's going to be all the way up. If he doesn't get traded by the draft, he's not getting traded. But this is when, if talks are getting serious, this is when, it's kind of just, we might think, eventually soon, you're going to start to hear finalists come out. You're going to start to hear, okay, this team's in on it, this team's kind of out. That's when the insiders get involved. That's when it really becomes public. But I don't really know. I don't really know what I don't know really how to say, when I think it's going to happen. All I can say is I do think it's going to happen very soon. I do think we'll get traded. You just got to keep it heads up. You just got to keep it heads up. All you got to wait is here, Jack Eichel traded or something like that. But, yeah, definitely a big storyline there in the NHL. Alrighty, so next up here, we're going to get into the New York Sports Update. Alrighty, so let's get into the New York Sports Update and, around the NBA and NHL and MLB and stuff like that. Alright, so Nets obviously won 114-108, and they moved to 2-2 in the series, or 3-2 in the series, so that's big there. And I talked about that earlier, so not much to go over now, but anyway. Alright, so 76ers Hawks. I'll give 76ers a win here, and then Jazz Clippers. Jazz without Clippers without Kawhi. Give me the Clippers, or give me the Jazz. Alright, so give me the Jazz there. And then as for the NHL, yesterday the Lightning won 4-2 against the Islanders. They moved to 1-1 in the series, and now heads back to Nassau Coliseum. And you're not going to expect to sweep the Lightning, but now you got to head back to Nassau Coliseum. Let's see here. All right, so tonight we got the Vegas Golden Knights and Canadiens. Give me the Golden Knights, the win. As for yesterday in the MLB, the Dodgers won, Mariners won, Giants won, A's won, Rockies won, Cheaters won, Reds won, Cardinals won, Tigers won, Red Sox won, White Sox won, Indians won, Nationals won. Mets won yesterday 3-2 behind the excellent performance by Taijuan Walker. They moved to 34-25 on the series, on the season rather. Yankees also won yesterday. Yankees won 6-5. We moved to 34-32 on the season. Big one for the Yankees. Chapman got the save. Loaizaga got the win. Gittins hit his first home run. Overall, a very good game yesterday by the New York Yankees. All right, so as for today's games in the MLB, we got the Cardinals, Marlins. I'll give Cardinals the win. White Sox, Rays. I'll give White Sox the win. Reds, Brewers. Give me the Brewers the win. Royals, Tigers. Give me the Royals the win. Padres, Rockies. I'll give Padres the win. Then we got the A's, Angels. I'll give A's the win. Nationals, Pirates. Give Nationals the win. Indians, Orioles. Give Indians the win. Braves, Red Sox. Give Braves the win. At Cheaters, Rangers. Give Cheaters the win. Giants, Diamondbacks. Give Giants the win. Dodgers, Phillies. Give Dodgers the win. And Twins, Mariners. Give Twins the win. Today we also got the Mets and the Cubs. Mets come in this game 34-25. Cubs come in this game 38-29. This game comes on today 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. Stocks on the mound for the Cubs. Jacob deGrom's on the mound for the Mets. 6-2, .56 ERA, over under 6.5 for this game. DeGrom's on the mound. Give me the Mets the win. And the Yankees also play today. Yankees come in this game 34-32. Blue Jays come in this game 33-32. This game goes on today, 7:07 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find this game on Sportsnet, and you can find this game on Yes Network. Yankees got Garrett Cole on the mound. He's 7-3 with a 2.31 ERA. And Blue Jays got Ross Stripling on the mound. He comes in this game 2-3 with a 4.91 ERA. Over-under is 8.5 for this game. 66% of people say the Yankees win this game. I'll join them. I think we'll give them. I think they'll win. Still not, satisfied with the Yankees. I'm still not happy with them. But, Cole's on the mound. You always feel confident when he's out there. As for fantasy baseball, I'm currently losing 131 to 111. But today I've got going Will Smith, Matt Olson, Josh Rojas, Alex Bregman, Marcus Semien, Carlos Correa, Austin Riley, Christian Yelich, Whit Merrifield, Austin Meadows, Dylan Carlson, Avisail Garcia, and Yadier Molina. So some updates here. I made a couple roster changes. So let me go with this update first, the injury update first. So Gene Segura is day-to-day. Manager Joe Girardi said after Tuesday's 5-3 loss to the Dodgers that Segura was removed in the ninth inning due to a left groin strain. Todd Zolecki of MLB.com reports. Tom Zolek. I'm not so confident that's day-to-day, Girardi said regarding Segura's injury, which is not great news. Hopefully it's nothing major. He's been a big part of the Phillies and a big part of my fantasy team. And also, Glasnow has a partially torn partial UCL tear. So that's in his elbow, which isn't good. So he's on the 10-day IL, so I had to place him on the IL. This is the news on him. Glasnow was placed on the 10-day injured list Tuesday after an MRI revealed a partial UCL tear as well as a flexure strain in his right elbow. Mark Topkin of the Tampa Bay Times reports. So I placed him on the IL. I still plan on probably making a trade. I'm just trying to figure out what. And right now, depending on how long Glasnow's out, if he's going to be out for a really long time, then I'll make a trade. If it's only going to be a couple weeks, then I probably won't. But if he's going to be out for a really long time, worst case, the entire rest of the season, I'm going to make a trade. And we'll find out relatively shortly. So I had to pick up Jonathan Loaizaga. So, season stats were 6-2 on the season. He's 6-2 on the season. 2 saves, 27 strikeouts, a 1.78 ERA, .99 whip, and 112 fantasy points. His position rank is 29th. 4 is his average points per game, and he's across leagues, he's 16.6 roster, but 1.9% he's going up. So, picked him up yesterday, and today I've also got Garrett Cole starting. So, it's frustrating that Glasnow's out. He's been a big part of my team, but we'll see. All right. Alrighty. So anyway, that's what I got for the podcast today. That's what I got for the podcast today. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. As always, another podcast tomorrow, and yeah. So I think tomorrow we're going to do probably some Stephon Gilmore talk. He's holding out right now. So probably some Stephon Gilmore talk. Then maybe, I'm not sure. It's how really sports goes. If there's it's also how the night of sports goes, depending on all that stuff. So, but yeah, tomorrow will be another big day in sports. But yeah, that's what I got for today. A little bit of a calmer day in New York sports. Obviously, last night was a big night with Kevin Durant and the Yankees and the Mets and the Islanders. A little bit of a calmer day today with just the Yankees and the Mets on. But still, 2 baseball games on, and that's all that matters. So, so with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.